Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to DDJ's Inferno, the normally weekly show where I talk about issues relevant to men and self-preservation in a gynocentric society. And this week's train to the DDJ's Inferno is arriving rather early this morning. Holy shit, it's 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, or just after 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, in case you haven't noticed by the icons on the screen, my guest today is Stacy King, and Stacy is in Europe, and we have kind of been talking back and forth a little bit about scheduling, and it's been very difficult to get our schedules to match. So I decided I was just going to get up and do a red eye stream, and to try to accommodate Stacy's busy schedule as a trad wife and mother. So good morning, Stacy, or good afternoon to you. How are you doing today?
Hi. Well, I'm fine. Fine. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thank you. Also, before we get started, I just wanted to say big thank you to Helsing, big thank you to Grizzly, Oslo MGTOW. I really appreciate you taking the time this morning to shoot me all the questions out of the chat. There will be a Q&A session for myself and for Stacy after we have the conversation portion. Unfortunately, Lily Even 32 couldn't make it this morning just because of scheduling conflicts, but who knows? I mean, I just don't want a cat fight in my stream, so there we go. Because you know how women are. No disrespect, Stacy, or to you, Lily. So with that in mind, obviously for those people that are longtime followers, you're going to get the Bukkake Chokeslam points. Feel free to redeem those in for questions. I will go ahead and be monitoring Streamlabs to get those questions once they show up with those redemptions. And with that in mind, let's get started. So Stacy, talk to me. What's been going on with your channel lately? I mean, you've been on YouTube for a while. How long have you been on YouTube?
About 2 years now, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Just about 2 years.
Now, for those that don't know, go ahead.
Yeah, well, because you asked what's happening to my channel. It's doing the same as usual. I have the most erratic schedule on YouTube. I can do every Friday 3 weeks in a row, then nothing for a month, and 3 videos in a week, and it's just yeah.
Sounds like dating.
It's been stagnating, but it's fun. Does it? Yeah. You could say that.
Fair enough. All right. Well, does your husband know about your love affair with YouTube?
Of course he does. He watches all my videos and likes them and shares them on Facebook, and he's very proud of my work.
Beautiful. So let me ask you, what does, if you were to kind of describe your channel, like the type of content that you create, how would you, describe it for me?
Oh, that's always been what do you do on your channel, Stacy? It's a whole lot of things. I do political commentary. I do videos telling men's stories from the first person. Those are basically MRA videos that aim to close the empathy gap. I do MRA advocacy videos. I have a movie review on my channel. I do this thing where I read through articles and make fun of them. It's just a mixed bag of what the fuck I'm feeling like doing today, or tomorrow, or this week.
Well, whenever I have a female on my channel, I have to get the important questions out of the way first.
Sure.
Number one, out of respect for the production manager for the TFM show Feeding the Cat, but also because I've told my audience that these would be the 2 questions I would ask every female guest, just because we're on the same page and I want to be a man of my word. So the first most important of the 2 questions is, are you a trap?
Nope.
All right. And you know what? You're the first woman that actually have just resounding. Beautiful.
I got too many more to prove it, so beautiful. I'm definitely not a trap.
Okay. And then the next most important question, and again, this is because of Kat. And again, I don't know if you watch the Turd Flinging Monkey show or not, but we talk about important things like the sweet corn challenge. So, and if it's a little too personal as a married woman, I totally get it, but I've got to ask, anal, yes or no?
None of your business.
Okay, there you go. I had to ask though. I had to ask the question, so I figured I would at least go there. So no, trap not confirmed. Let the galaxy burn. I see you there in chat. But with that in mind, so yeah, so you got a mixed bag of a variety of different things that you talk about. Talk about your series, Patriarchy Tales. Tell us about that and share a little bit about that with us.
Well, it's a series of stories that viewers have sent to me, and they're all about different kinds of abuse these men have gone through. Some have been abused as children, some have been sexually abused, some have been in an abusive marriage or relationship, and some have been falsely accused of rape and had to deal with the fallout from that. I've done Terrence Popp's story as well, one of the first stories. I've done C.S. MGTOW's story, though it's anonymously, so you have to figure out which one it is. And a bunch of people who decided to stay anonymous for understandable reasons. And it's interesting where the idea for that came from, because I was listening to, I'm a creepypasta fan, and I was listening to these stories.
I thought you were going to just tell me you were creepy. I was like, holy shit. Anyway, go on.
No. So I was listening to the story, and I didn't pay attention in the beginning, and it turns out it was a girl's story. But it's because most of the best creepypasta readers online are male. It turned out to be a female story told by a male, and the entire time I was thinking, like, what are you thinking, man? Just punch the guy or whatever, because he was scary and creepy, and I was scared and I couldn't do anything, and it clicked in my mind. We receive stories differently because of the voice that's telling them. And I thought, okay, maybe if someone hears a man's story told in the first person by a woman, they might react emotionally differently to it than if it's just, a guy telling a story.
So you're saying, if I understand correctly, you're saying that basically you were trying to get people to empathize with men's stories by telling them with a woman's voice?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard that brains, both male and female, react differently to male and female voices. So, we got to close that empathy gap somehow. So,
well, I can only speak from personal experience. I respond better to a woman's voice than a man's, but I'm decidedly heterosexual, so there is that.
Yeah. And it really depends on the audience, because when I posted one of my Patriarchy Tales on TFM's channel, it was really poorly received. Like, you really need to know what you're getting into, and it was a big mistake, a very, unfortunate place to advertise my channel.
But I get it.
Yeah, he needed a guest video, and I was like, if you wanna, I can help out. And he said, why not? Plus, we know each other since forever, so it's fine.
Sounds good. Well, and you and I have mirrored videos back and forth as well, so I mean,
yeah.
And it seems like at least my audience has been a little bit more responsive to that particular mirror than TFM's was. Yeah, he lost a lot of subs out of that. I remember that. We talked about that when he and I first met.
I remember. I apologized. I was like, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that.
Nice. So talk to me. You're in Eastern Europe. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, so the southern part of Eastern Europe, the Balkans.
Okay. let me ask you, do you guys have the same immigrant issues that's going on in Western Europe and Northern Europe?
Um, well, this is going to be a fun story time moment.
Well, let me tell you something.
In the early,
I'm not a hater or a killjoy when it comes to funds. So do what you
yeah,
got to do.
in the early 2011, when the migrant crisis started, our southern and eastern border got raided. Like there were tons of people going through the country, and they just go through it. They don't stop. Like some of them stop to collect money or whatever, but most of them just go through black channels, through the black market channels, through the Balkans, and headed west.
So what you're saying
So,
is if I just to clear for my audience,
mhm,
what you're saying is that these people were illegal immigrants. They illegally
yeah,
crossed through your country and tried to use it as a corridor into Europe.
yep, yep.
Oh, okay.
Uh, some of them, some of them tried to claim refugee status here. But first, our bureaucracy is a lot heavier than Western Europe's.
Right.
And unfortunately, because of that, because the system got overwhelmed, one of the neighborhoods, the one I lived before I moved where I am now, in my city, the refugee center is there, and we used to live there. I don't know, about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was a normal place, just a normal place. Sometimes you would see, uh, you know, people of an unusual skin color within the region, but it was something normal. We knew like the refugee center is there. They're probably, from somewhere, and they're figuring their life out. A year after I moved, or 2 years, I had friends that had apartments there saying we're looking to sell because the children's playgrounds we had are now camps with tents full of migrants, and it's literally dangerous to take your kids out to play because these are scary people that will rob you and will beat you, and they would throw rocks at children playing in the schoolyard. They needed police intervention over there until they fixed that problem.
So
And
let me ask you this as a
the fun
clarifying
part of the
question.
story, okay?
Just a couple, and I apologize. I'll be jumping in back and forth. Um, so you had a refugee center that was there, but the refugee center started getting inundated with refugee applicants who were entering the country illegally.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that basically you were getting warnings and things like that. Was that, I mean, did the crime rate actually go up? I mean, what was going on?
Um, all I know is what my friends would tell me. They would say, like, we're staying in, or we go to the big parks in the center of the city. We don't go out in the neighborhood anymore because we don't feel safe. I don't know if the crime rate went up or not because as I said, our bureaucracy sucks. And I've tried to find crime statistics on multiple topics, but our Bulgarian, yeah, they suck at
I
that,
get it.
and I
Well,
can't find that.
when Obama took presidency in the United States, he changed the way the FBI reports crime in the United States, and so it's actually a lot harder to find objective crime statistics now than it was prior to 2008. So I actually only discovered that when I was writing my book, The Feminist Lie, #shill alert.
It's a great
Go on.
book. You should buy it.
There you go. There you go. We'll talk about that in a minute because you've read it, right?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah. So it sounds like that. Now, how did you know to avoid those neighborhoods? Were notices being posted? I mean, were there television
No,
commercials?
no,
Were
no, no.
town crier? What's going on?
No, no, no. It's here everything starts bottom up. So people would start complaining, and
We have
slowly but
songs like
surely it
that
got
here in the United States. We don't call it bottom up though. We call it ass up. But go on.
okay. So slowly but surely the information reached Europe. And Europe's solution was, we're gonna give you money so you can deal with the crisis and give the money to the refugees. And you know what our wonderful politicians did with the money?
Kept
You
it.
know what they did? They built a wall.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Oh, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
we took Europe's money and we built a wall. And to this day, if you look it up, Europe will say, no, they didn't build a wall with it. They built it with their own money. They used the money for refugee centers, and our refugee centers looks exactly the same, but we have a wall.
Wait,
So
that sounds kind of familiar. It sounds like somebody in the United States is talking about doing the same thing. I don't know who, but that's hilarious though.
yeah, and after we built the wall, there was this huge scandal of this one illegally getting into the country guy getting shot because there was border patrol and they told them to stop. They told them, like, freeze, you're under arrest, blah, blah, blah. They didn't react. They continued running. So he killed one of them. And that was the last anyone heard of anything like that. I think the people slowly but surely realized it's not safe passing through Bulgaria. And they started going through Serbia and other countries that aren't part of the European Union. So yeah.
Well, sometimes, and again, I don't know exactly where you are in relation to historical Wallachia, but Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Tepes was a
Oh,
real big
he
fan.
was a bit, yeah, he was a bit to the north of where I am. Just a tiny bit, about 8 hours
Okay,
with
yeah.
a car.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a real big fan of making examples as well, and his people loved him for it. So even
Hmm.
today, he's considered a hero. Um, and and that's the thing. I mean, that's if you look at that, you just understand that sometimes you got to put a motherfucker's head on a pike just to convey the message. Um,
Or the entire motherfucker, like that's even more.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Sort of like my last Sunday stream with Mad Shangy hashtag haha. So yeah, I get it. I totally get it. And I think it's kind of hilarious that not only did Bulgaria build a wall, but they made EU pay for it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's gold.
I know, I know. I try to tell it to as many people as I, because you will never hear from mainstream media about this. Like only we know about it, and even our politician will try to like not say it. Like they'll be like, we used the money, like we repurposed it for stuff and things and services and national security, and let's obfuscate this and not say we built a wall with EU's money because we might get spanked.
Well, not all spankings are bad, but I get it. I totally get it. Um, so with that in mind, let's kind of switch gears a little bit. You did a video recently about the Istanbul Convention, and I noticed that obviously I don't speak Bulgarian, but you did this not only in English, but it's my understanding this was your first video in Bulgarian. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
S-
and I started hearing about it on TV here a lot, and all the comments were way off because I'm the kind of person that doesn't rely solely on commentary. I went to the page and read the entire document. So I was like, this is feminist propaganda. Why are they focusing on the fucking legitimizing of the third gender? Like that is ridiculous. They're trying to make Bulgaria make shelters and implement the Duluth model. Like why is everyone complaining about transgender issues when we don't have those? There are way bigger problems within this convention than that. And I needed to put that in a video that Bulgarian audiences could see and understand with the citations and everything. And
right.
it did a lot better than I expected.
Good.
And
good.
it's like 80% of the audience was Bulgarian, which was just, I was really surprised.
Well, I think that's. I mean, obviously, your message is definitely resonating. No, it's kind of interesting. You're a female MRA, um, but I've noticed that there's some notable differences between you and some of the MRAs, and I guess in our conversations, I guess I think it's fair to characterize you more as a traditionalist as well, because you are married to the father of your children. You guys have been married for a while. You've got what, two boys? Is it?
Yep.
Um, yeah. So I mean, and you're a housewife and slash YouTuber. So what's interesting about this is that the difference that it seems like that to me, the difference between you and other female MRAs, the most noticeable one is really from your icon. You don't show your face or your tits on your YouTube channel. You don't even. I
I
mean,
don't
you don't
feel
sexualize yourself at all.
I don't feel I have to. Like why would I? If my message is strong enough, I will, you know, if a like if TFM can do it with his tiny lisp and dry sense of humor, then why can't I? You know, not use tits and face and whatever to attract attention. I
Right.
think my message is clear and good enough to stand on its own. And if it's not, then I have to just work harder.
And that's fine. And we can have some of that conversation a little bit later because there is a little bit of entertainment value there. Um, but
Yeah.
with that in mind, as an American, um,
Hmm.
things are different for us in Western Europe and United States than they are in Eastern Europe, where you are. Um,
I've
now,
noticed.
so I guess as far as some of those differences, let's talk about those a little bit. As far as like differences in culture, because again, I've been on the TFM show for a while, and we've interviewed people from all over the Eastern Bloc, and
Hmm.
it seems to me as though your culture is completely different. Now, as far as like families are concerned, as opposed to single moms, can you talk about? I mean, are single moms lionized in your country as they is the same way they are in the Western Europe and United States?
It's complicated. Um, there are two types of mom: good moms and bad moms. And I know uh, women that have had shit luck with men in their lives, and they did everything right, and the guy just sucked, and they didn't have a good judgment of character. So what they ended up doing is they worked their entire life and put their kids through school and stuff. But the thing is, I think the biggest difference between our countries and your countries is that we're a lot poorer. And because of that, we don't have a reliable social system. So uh, you can't just pop out a bunch of kids and live off the state. You can't do that. It's impossible. You'll get a little bit of money that might help with, I don't know, the electricity bill. But everything else you have to make yourself. So you have to choose. Do you want to find a new partner and, create a new family after you split from your ex? Or are you talented and do you have the work ethic to do it on your own? And they're definitely not lionized. They're not put on a pedestal. They're not being told, "Oh, you're doing such a better job than regular moms because you're alone." No, like not having a dad in the house is seen more as a disadvantage than a good thing.
It's actually kind of
Now,
funny that you mentioned that because that's something that I've been saying for a long time in the United States and in Western Europe. And now with this most recent shooting, the Parkland shooting, it's really kind of interesting because I've seen a lot of conservatives coming out and saying the same things. And they're like, look, if you don't have a father in the home, your children aren't going to have as great a chance at a good life as they would if they had a home with both biological parents. So I think it's kind of interesting that you bring that up. I also think it's
Here
kind
it's
of
more about money and survival, to be honest. It's really, really hard to survive on a single income. And for the longest time, I had my maternity coming in. I worked before I became a stay-at-home mom. Then I tried to go back to the workforce when they were a bit little, but it just didn't work out because they needed me and they were constantly sick, and we just didn't want to put them in the childcare system that early. So I came back and started to figure out things online. I used to do support for this site for online shopping for a long while, getting really shit pay before I figured out I can actually make money on YouTube. So here it's nearly impossible on a single person working to do that.
got it. Well, and it sounds like you guys don't really have much of a welfare state, so which again is another thing that we've talked about, in Western Europe and the United States, is that the welfare state really fosters this idea of being irresponsible and being entitled and
Well,
having a
it's
lot of this drama.
elementary psychology 101. You don't reward bad behavior. And when you throw money at someone that isn't working, they will not start working. Like here, if you haven't worked your entire life and you have just a very short amount of working months behind you, you get like 2 to 3 months on when you lose your job from the state. So you have about 2 months to find a new job if you apply for that. The more you have worked in your life, the longer you can stay. And I think the maximum amount you can get is around 7 months. And that's if you have like 15 years of work experience behind you.
Okay. Yeah, they
So,
call that unemployment insurance out here.
yeah, unemployment. I forget words sometimes. So
That's okay.
I'm
I
sorry.
know English is a second language for you, so I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, yeah,
Even unemployment, which is supposed to be like the safety net of every country, even that is very limited and very strict in its distribution. And if you look up the child care money they give us, I don't know how that is called, like the money the state gives you for taking care of a child.
okay.
Basically, what
Like
single moms live off.
welfare.
What's that called? Welfare. Yeah, the welfare is like really, really small amounts of money, like under $100.
Okay. You can go ahead.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Be a mom to your kid.
There we go. I gave him
Yeah,
bananas. I think he's happy now.
there you go. Well, duct tape works too. Just trying to put that out there.
No. You
I
should
mean,
know better. Come on. For kids. Duct tape?
right.
Seriously?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Duct tape fixes everything. It's the number one parenting tool.
No.
So let me ask you this. So in your society, in your culture, obviously single moms aren't getting a lot of welfare. They're not getting, they're not lionized. Would you say that the majority of adults in your country are married or in long-term relationships, or are the majority of them single, and maybe have kids outside of wedlock?
It depends on which part of the country you're talking about. The more you head towards rural areas, the more traditional you get. And the more, central and big city you get, the more that there's a shift there. But it's not nothing of notice yet. Like kids are perceived as kids and can be promiscuous and have fun and not look for a long time partner up until early to mid 20s, like till you're in the university. Once you're out, you're expected to, if you don't have one until that point, then is the time people start looking for a serious partner. And though it's risen, like the age of the first baby for a woman has risen from early 20s to late 20s, it's still in the 20s.
Okay.
Women are having their second babies around their 30s, or sometimes even the third.
So what you're saying is that many of the women don't actually wait until they've hit the wall in order to settle down.
No. Definitely not.
Okay.
I was in a bit of a rush because I knew what I wanted very early on. So I was looking for a baby daddy when I was 19. I found him when I was 21. We got married the same year we met, like 9 months apart from meeting, and I had my first baby when I was 23. So, but I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted a family. I knew I wanted this man, and I wanted his kids, and I wanted my happily ever after with him. So I'm an outlier when it comes to that.
When it comes to pardon me, when it comes to feminism in Bulgaria, how much control does feminism have over public policy and politics?
None whatsoever. And I'll explain the reason why. And I think this is my 10th time explaining this on a podcast, but repetition leads to mastery. So if you look at the way communism is set up with the equality and everyone's working and everyone's equal, you understand that feminism, the way it's fed to the West, is basically an extension of Marxist theory. So since we have an innate revulsion to communism because communism ended 30 years ago, 25-ish, 30, I don't know, God, time flies so fast.
It does.
Yeah, I was 3 years old when communism ended here. So
okay.
Yeah, it's been almost 30 years now.
So what you're saying is that there's still an institutional knowledge of the horrors that were communism.
Yes, there's a social knowledge, even though most adults today didn't live consciously through it. They have the social knowledge that comes from their parents and their grandparents. What it was like, what the problems were, and so on and so forth. The biggest problem is that everyone's equally poor. You look to the West and you can see they can prosper there. You have competition. It's not, when you can't advance and you don't have competition within your field, and you don't have monetary incentive to be better, you're not. So everything devolves into interpersonal bickerings and stupid shit at work. And because you have to work for the state the entire time, your life starts to function more at work than at home. So the family unit starts breaking apart a little bit. And you have this, you have to respect the women that work, and they work equally, so they get the equal pay, blah, blah, blah. And they're discouraged from taking care of their children and encouraged to put them in the system where they can be indoctrinated in communism from a very, very early age. And with this social knowledge about communism, that translates to, it was never called feminism, but how something you remember something and it's like, oh, that reminds me so much of something else.
Reminiscent. Yeah.
Yes. That's how I feel every time I read feminist anything. It's like, oh, this is socialist propaganda. I can pull out one of my father or mother's textbooks on what's communism, and the aims and history of it, and find paragraphs that are identical.
Yeah,
You can just switch out the proletariat for women and you're done. That's it.
right.
It's the
Well, and
same
it's funny that you
sentiment.
mentioned, yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because second wave feminists used to admit that feminism and communism were one and the same. So it's actually kind of interesting to hear from your perspective because it sounds like your culture and your country is a little bit more traditionalist. They actually have um, a higher appreciation of traditional
Well,
family values and
it's
that kind of thing.
traditionalist. It's traditionalist as far as we have family values. Like uh, we come together as families. It's normal to see, the kids to go to their grandparents and family friends and people with other kids, and that close knit community kind of feeling and values you have when you have a family structure to base it around. Uh, we
I
still have
definitely,
that.
yeah, and I definitely believe that strong families make strong communities. So,
Mm, yeah.
so it's kind of nice for you to actually confirm
But
some of that at least.
yeah, but the thing is, me and my husband are more of an outlier when it comes to institutional marriage. And our reason for doing that is because we were so young. No one took us seriously. No one, like, we were saying, we want to be a family. We're making a family. We're together. Just accept it. Neither of our families was accepting. So we were like, you know what? We're going to get married to prove you guys wrong. Uh, and because that's the most, obvious declaration of we're a fucking family, accept it already, we could think of.
That's
Um,
a that's a hell of a way to rebel against your parents, but I support it.
yeah. Because most of our friends with long-term relationships or, kids and stuff, most of them don't get married. And it's again for economic reasons because weddings are expensive and divorces are expensive. So they're like, if we want to be together, we'll be together. If we want to split up, we'll split up. We don't need the state in our relationship in bed. No.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
So apparently there's been, and I haven't, and I apologize. I saw your most recent video, and then after I saw your most recent, well, I wouldn't say your most recent video, but your video in response to Coltane. I watched part of his video. I ended up watching your
Mm-hmm.
entire video, and then I
Mm-hmm.
watched the rest of his. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so with that in mind, kind of talk about that whole scenario for a minute because it seems like you and him might have been in a little bit of a disagreement.
Well, the fact that he doesn't understand that cost savings is actually, bringing money into the family is his problem, honestly, because that's all I'm trying to explain throughout the video. When you have a stay-at-home mom that doesn't use a car, that doesn't use this, that doesn't use that, and saves you money by taking care of the kid that doesn't go to childcare and things like that, you know, uh, you're saving money. And when you save money, that is the fair share, you know. I don't understand how people can understand that happening within a company when you cut spending here and there, you're cost saving. But when it comes to a family, it's like, no, women should work, kids need a nanny, and that kind of labor isn't real labor. So lazy women are lazy, and yeah,
Well,
anyone that's had to take care of more than two kids in a household for more than a week knows that it is actual work. So that's all I can say about that.
yeah, I mean, let me take it from my perspective. And again, this is a Western perspective because, our cultures are different. Um, I was married twice, and both of my wives were shit mothers. Um, they were stay at home mothers, but they were shit. I would come home from work, the house wouldn't be cleaned. Um, the kids, I mean, my second wife was a better caregiver than my first. Um, my first was horrible, and pardon me, and so she was more. I mean, in the end, they were both greater expenses than assets, and with the way Western society has adopted feminism and this gynocentric culture that lionizes women who are narcissists, who are entitled, who think of themselves before their children, think of themselves before their husband. Um, women. It's actually kind of funny because women no longer, in this day and age, they no longer cook, they no longer clean, they no longer do housewife traditional duties. So, in other words, like you, for instance, you're a traditional housewife in addition to being a YouTuber. So, your primary role obviously is to not only be supportive of your family, but also to be kind of like that domestic anchor that everybody can go to. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I know we've talked a little bit. So, you cook, you clean, you prepare
Mm.
lunches, you get everybody going. Um, but you do
Yep.
things that most Western women don't.
Well,
And
that's unfortunate. Why don't Western men make Western women do it? Do you think I want to? Do you think I was born like this? I got married when I was in my early 20s. I'm the way I am because my husband nagged me into it. It's like,
right,
you need to
well,
do this, you need to do that, and that's not done, and this is not done, and like he made me the way I am.
yeah,
I'm not
I think that
naturally organized, and I learned to cook while being with him. Like he's had to eat horrible shit until I learned how to cook.
well, I think
Oh,
that one of the biggest challenges is that, especially in countries that have adopted coercive controlled domestic violence laws, they've criminalized that behavior. So, if your husband's like, Stacy, holy shit, the steak you made is a hockey puck. What the fuck is wrong with you? And instead of you going, well, shit, maybe I need to learn how to cook a steak, if you were in a Western country, you'd be like, well, that's domestic violence, or you're being emotionally abusive to me, or whatever. And so there's a huge criminalization agenda when it comes to female accountability, and when it comes to even something as simple as criticizing bad behavior. And I'm not even talking about like male female bad behavior as much as I'm talking about bad behavior that would be objectively bad if anybody did it, but
mhm.
specifically when a husband or a father brings these things to the table with regard to his wife or the mother of his children. And I see, and again, because I'm going my own way, and there are many people out there who were a part of the MGTOW community. Many of the people who have experience with women, they've seen this exact thing, and those of us who have even dated, like, you'll see a woman who will be really attractive and extremely well put together, and I'm talking, she's taken time on her nails, she's taken time on her clothing, she's taken time on her hair, she's done her makeup just perfectly. You get back to her house, and her house looks like a drug house because like her bathroom is just full of shit, and her
That's
bedroom is a
disgusting.
wreck. Yeah, and you walk through the door and there's like a stench. And these aren't welfare moms. That's the sad part. These are not, like, I'm not describing women in a ghetto. Now
Okay,
this these
how hard is it to just keep things? I'm not saying keep it perfect. Don't be OCD about it, but Jesus,
right.
how hard is it just
Well,
I
consistency
don't
and
know.
standards are tools of the patriarchy in the West.
I guess so. Yeah.
And
Plus, I've learned over time that nothing looks better and is more alluring than healthy, clear skin and a good, relatively in shape body. And the more natural a woman is, the more attractive she is to men. That's what I've noticed. So, for that reason, I don't own makeup. I don't own nail polish. I don't own them. I haven't used them since I was a kid. Then I had kids and didn't have time for it, but now I don't just because I don't. Like I remove hair from my different places. I cut my own hair because hairdressers are horrible people. And it's just like I feel prettier than ever. And I don't even plan to start using makeup and stuff.
Well, right, but you have
And
to understand too that in
and
Western media,
I constantly get told I look younger than I am simply because I don't use makeup and they expect, the aging makeup to be on and it's not.
right? Well, and in the West, there's feminism, and a lot of feminist organizations foster female insecurity, and so part of that insecurity is, oh, you have to look, you have to wear makeup to look prettier, or you've got to take this
Why?
diet pill, or you've got to get this hairstyle, you have to purchase this item, and so the reason
But
I bring that
isn't
to
it
your
all
attention.
about that's what I never understood about feminism. Like, let's empower women, let's talk about hairy armpits and whatever, and then all women go painted up and unnatural and just unhealthy. That's the problem. Like, all you need is a healthy body and healthy skin. You don't even need to be that pretty naturally. Like, you need to have charisma, a character, and to look relatively healthy. And you're done. That's it. No makeup, no nothing. That's why
Well,
vegan women look so good because they're healthy and thin.
right, they're just neurotic, or at least the ones
Yeah,
in the
they're just
West,
yeah.
you
But
know.
but at least they look good without the makeup on.
Yeah, yeah, and there's something to be said for that. And the reason I bring it up too is because, again, it's gotten so bad in the West that, again, hashtag shill alert. They did a study just a couple months ago, and they found that, in the West, like 1 in 4 men would have sex with a sex doll, and a lot of men now are moving away from traditional relationships, and again, it's because, um, things are so bad that men are like, it's a better decision for me to masturbate with an inanimate object than it is for me to invest in an actual living, breathing woman. Because number one, the sex is the same, and number two, the sex doll doesn't bring problems to the relationship. There are no false allegations of abuse. There are no opportunities for
That is
divorce rate.
genuinely sad to me. That is genuinely sad to me. It's just
Right.
as
And
as a mom of boys and an MRA, that is just sad, because we are a social species. We need human contact. It's a human need as real and as palpable as the need to breathe, the need to eat, the need to drink water. We need that to stay sane, you know?
well,
You
and
need to be touched, you need to be loved, you need to interact with someone. I remember the months that like for about 2 years, all the social contact I had was my babies and my immediate family, and I went insane from the
right.
lack of socialization. I was depressed and just I was bordering on sanity at that point. And then the kids were big enough and we would go out and play and I'd talk to other moms and everything was a lot better. But like, I just can't imagine how horrible both the women and the system have to be for a man to do that to himself because it's genuinely sad for me.
Right. And I can tell you right now, in the West, women are more miserable than they've been in the last, half century at least. Um, pardon me. I'm still getting over being sick from last week. Um, yeah, I mean, they're more miserable than they have been in a long, long time. And if people looked at this from a health perspective, I mean, this would definitely be akin to a pandemic. Because if you look in the countries where, in the areas in those countries where feminist policies have not only been adopted, but feminism has been lionized, the traditional family has been broken down and it's demonized. The extended family, like aunts, uncles, grandparents, those types of things, they've been completely demonized. Any kind of family values are demonized. Men are treated as disposable, and again, society suffers for it. These areas turn into high crime ghettos, and people lose their ability to critically think about things that are important to their family, important to their environment, and important to their
I'm gonna
communities.
I'm gonna sound like a collectivist horrible person right now. And I know that, and
Just right
I'm
now,
not just in this second when I'm going
okay,
to start speaking.
all right, go for it, go for it.
But yeah, and I don't like, I think it takes a different kind of person to do different things. But I think people like me and my husband, because we both don't live for ourselves, we live for each other and the kids, especially the kids. Like, we don't think, oh, what does Stacy or Mr. King want to do today? It's like, what would make the people I'm living with happy? And that's how we plan our days and our lives and our jobs. We put other people first. And all I can see from Western media is put yourself first. You need to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people. No, it's the other way around. It's the other way around. It's way more rewarding when you take care of the people around you. And then in return, if you take care of enough people, you're going to find 2 or 3 people that will care enough and be grateful enough to take care of you. And that's how societies and just communities are built. They're not built around you do you boo. They're built around, think of ways you can take care of the people around you and do things for them they can't do for themselves.
Well, you have to understand that there's
And
actually been a form of that's been adopted in Western culture, but they've warped it a little bit. So rather than actually taking care of each other, instead of taking care of ourselves first, they're still taking care of themselves, and it's called the cock carousel. And a lot of women do it in their 20s, where they're fucking everybody, i.e., taking care of everybody
hey,
else.
I'll be the first to say I was a promiscuous teenager. I had horrible daddy issues, and I was a promiscuous teenager. I got to my double digits when I was 17, but that hasn't stopped me from being a good housewife and a good, person the rest of my life.
Right, but you also got off the
Just
cock carousel before you hit the wall.
yeah,
So, I mean,
that's
common sense there. And I mean, it sounds like even though you
yeah,
might have been
exactly.
promiscuous as a child, your goal was to get married at some point. I mean, your goal was to
Yeah.
that's the thing is like Western women, their goal is to go, oh, you can do it all. You could be a professional woman. You can go and have this career. That wasn't your mindset. Your mindset was I need to find a husband. I want to have a family. I want to do this. I want to do that. And even though you turn around
For the
and
longest
yeah,
for the longest time, I thought I'll be going back to work. And maybe maybe when the kids are old enough, I might start working outside the home because I'll just get bored sitting at home all the time with
sure.
adult children. Uh, but like careers are for talented people. Only and that's one of the few things I agree on with Jordan Peterson. Like, careers are something a handful of very talented, very driven people have. Everyone else has a job. And
Right.
I prefer my kids and my husband to be my job to, working for a cranky boss for a soulless corporation to get money to pay the rent and just continue living and buying shit that I can throw away later. And,
Well, and to give you an example too, in the West, consumerism has gotten so bad that people have so much shit they can't even put it in their house. There's a thriving storage industry where people have so much shit they have to store it in offsite storage and they pay monthly fees for it. I mean, it's really bad.
that's sad. That's really sad.
Yes, it is.
Uh,
Well, Stacy, I appreciate you chatting with me today. I noticed that the Twitch chat has had some rather entertaining comments here and there. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Q&A now. Um, Oslo, I know we talked a little bit earlier when the stream first got started. Um, so it looks like we may or may not have any questions so far from the chat. I haven't seen very many of them. So Oslo, if there are questions, go ahead and shoot me DMs. I'm also looking at the Bukkake Chokeslam redemptions. I don't see any questions from there yet. So guys, if you have questions of myself or Stacy King, now is the time. So I'll give you a couple minutes to think about what your questions might be. Shoot your questions. If we don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and close the stream down and move on with my day.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, it's 6
Like
a.m.
a
my time.
plan.
So if we don't have a lot of questions, I promise not to cry about it. So I think everybody else
Don't be
might be
too
waking
upset.
up as well. Right, right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not seeing any questions. I think maybe we got a lot of people before they had their coffee. Plus, again, because this is not my normal time, I've only got about a half to a third of my normal viewers, so which isn't that big a deal. And I'll be putting this up on YouTube as well. Here we go. Here's a question
Yeah.
from HollowMan1345. Um,
Mm-hmm.
DJ, what's the difference between the TFM 420 and the TFM show on Saturdays? Actually, the main difference is that the TFM 420 show on Wednesday mornings is it's a roundtable news show, similar to, it's kind of a riff off of the Anderson Cooper 360, where they basically talk about news articles and things. So it's more of a response show, and it's less of a personal history show or a personal anecdotal story show. Whereas the TFM show, we bring in guests, they tell their stories, we give feedback, there's some Q&A, that kind of thing. All right, next question. And thank you, Oslo, for grabbing this for me. Stacy, this is for you. Would you be willing to give up your rights to make your country better if it was a more stable country for you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that with TSM a while ago. Because he's been pestering me to admit that I don't need any rights, and I'm like, I really do want to not die, and it's like you don't get it. Like women don't need rights because if men have the rights to protect their women, everything is fine.
Okay.
And yeah, if I need to, if my like the security of my family and my country depended on it, like you can have them and do your best with them.
Okay. All right. Hallowman1345 asks, what country are you from? Bulgaria. We're going to move on to the next question. Pile of feces, or pile of feces 5. His question is, and this is for you, what services
Uh-huh.
do you provide your husband to make his life better and raise his kids?
Well, I cook, I clean, I make sure my kids are educated, uh, happy, fed, home cooked meals. I organize all his stuff. So when he wakes up, all his clothes are folded and ready for him to put on in the morning. And I perform my wifely duties at on demand and as requested, not to get too explicit.
Okay.
So that's
Right.
and since I made my channel and started getting a bit of money from there, and before that, like I make a tiny bit of money to complement his earnings as to the best of my abilities.
Okay.
So that's another thing.
Right. Um,
Hmm.
okay. Next question is from Darks Parks. A
Oh,
question for
and
me.
on top of that, I'm his friend and companion, and I know his secrets, he knows mine. We talk about things. I help him through stressful situations, and the things you expect from your best friend. That's what we give each other. But I don't even like that's not a service. That's a relationship.
Well, and you guys have been together almost 10 years, right?
No, it's actually we hit the 10-year anniversary last October, and now we're like in the middle of our 11th year knowing each other.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. Next question is from Dark Sparks. DDJ, do your kids
Uh-huh.
still stay in contact with your first wife? Occasionally they do, yes. But that relationship, if you know anything about my history, that relationship was permanently damaged. Swaffle Smurf asks, this is for you, Stacy. It's kind of a trolley question. If you can go
Okay.
back to your teenage years, what would you tell yourself before starting the dick train? And hold on, somebody else has got questions here. Hold on. What would you tell yourself before you started in the dick train? Had your promiscuous path led to lowering your standard to finding a man? I guess it's a three-part question. And what does your husband think about your past? Also, I want to make sure that there's abundantly clear. If you have questions, ask questions. Don't ask four fucking questions at the same time. I'm trying to track these questions. I don't have my Q&A thought. She's been well trained. She can deal with this shit. I'm shit when it comes to this. That's why the key to management's delegation.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so before getting on the dick train, I would say like have fun. You know.
there you go.
Um it actually brought another aspect of standards, you know, when fucking is a skill. It's a
Yes, I've
learnable
heard.
skill, and the more you do it, the better you're at it, and the better you are at detecting if your partner is good at it. So basically, me having experience beforehand helped both myself, bring something to the table to the relationship I started with my husband, and being able to recognize where qualities within him, and I'm not talking about physicality here, I'm talking about skill, attitude, the way he is about things. So we really fit together well sexually, and that is very important in a relationship. And if I'm not saying it's not possible and it's not, something that happens, but unless you have prior sexual experience, you are not definitely going to click with your partner.
Right.
So
And
what he
kegels are a
has,
thing.
and kegels are a thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And what he thinks about it is that his number is way higher than mine. That's what he
Fair enough.
thinks.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. This is from Hallowman1345. He says, question for the guest. Would you say that most to all of the women are like you in terms of being a good working housewife? I guess I'm assuming that's women in Bulgaria.
No, no.
Okay.
I'm an outlier. Like most women are either working moms or stay-at-home moms. Um, it's a rare combination to find someone like me that's working from home. Plus here it's harder to achieve, so
Okay.
there's that.
All right, let's move on to the next question. This is another one for you. Do you find
Hmm.
that the EU's immigration policy will continue being trouble for your country?
No, no. And here's why. The state our immigration status is right now has nothing to do with policy. It has everything to do with our social system. And most of these migrants are financial migrants. They are aiming for Western Europe for the free money, good accommodations, and good infrastructure. Our country is too poor to give them that. So even if they pass through, they don't want to stay. So it's not that
Okay.
bad. Not that
All
bad.
right.
And it's not going to be any better because if they send us more money, we'll just make the wall higher.
I like it. All right. Next question again from Howlman1345. DDJ, this is the first time I've seen you do a show this early on a Tuesday. Will you do this more often? It really depends on my guests, Howlman. Stacy and I had been talking for a while about when to do a show, and schedules were really kind of a difficult thing to come through. And, for those who don't realize, I mean, I get guests from around the world, even though I'm a relatively new YouTube channel. I've only been doing this since late October of last year. So, if my guests or people who want to speak to me on a live stream, if they are in Europe or they are somewhere else in the world where, where schedules are difficult to match up, then yeah, I might do this again. This is not going to be a consistent Tuesday thing. My normal live show happens on Sundays, Pacific time, or Sundays Eastern Standard Time. But when it comes to people like Stacy, where I think she's, I don't know, 8-10 hours ahead of me, or when it comes to people that are, far ahead of me on the time zone, I definitely want to be flexible to be able to have these types of conversations. All right, let me look through here. I'm trying to see if there's any. Here's another one for Halaman. DDJ, do you need thick skin working in family court? If so, why? Yeah, you do. You listen. Here's the thing. If you're a legal professional and you don't have thick skin, you are fucking done. You're done. Because the goal is to get under your skin. The goal, I mean, you have to understand that when you're in a court system, you're fucking with people's lives. Like, you might go to a court hearing and it's a 15-minute court hearing, and that in that 15 minutes, your entire life changes. And those changes could be as severe as being standing out on a street corner and being savagely beaten for 15 minutes, which, by the way, can kill you, of course. I mean, to hurt somebody is easy. And what people understand is in family court, you have to be able to have thick skin, because you have to be able to focus on the issues. Because if you're a spurg, if you're an emotional thinker, if you're somebody who is easily offended, those are going to be the things that people are going to zero in on, and those are going to be the things they're going to attack you for. And you see this, like, you even see like a microcosm of this, or like it's like family court's retarded little brother with internet blood sports, where people will talk over each other and they will be just offensive and they will hurt each other's feelings, and there'll be these like little pixelated feuds back and forth between YouTube drama and things like that. Those things are, at the end of the day, some of those things really don't cross over to the point where they affect you and change your life. But I mean, you walk into a 15-minute domestic violence hearing and you might walk out without your car. You might walk out. You might not walk out. The judge may throw you in jail. Your life can be, you have to be able to have thick skin, because in the United States and in Western countries, the majority anyway, court is a adversarial system. It is a gladiatorial system. And what that means is that there's one winner and there is one loser. And the winner can often win by a landslide, and the loser often gets devastated. So it's very, very brutal. And I've told people for a long time that the rules of a street fight are exactly similar to the rules of a family court. So if you can't handle yourself in a street fight, you're not going to be able to handle yourself in a family court, and vice versa. But again, it's a difference in communication style, because in a street fight, you're communicating with martial techniques. You're communicating with your body. In family court, you're communicating with your words, or any kind of court, you're communicating with your words. So that's kind of where I'm headed with that. Oslo, I appreciate you shooting out and reminding me about the questions sent to Discord. I'm going to touch on those now. So yeah, definitely you need thick skin. Next question. Let's see. This is for you, Stacy. Are you in support of sex dolls taking power away from women who can accuse men of rape at will, even many years in the future after the sexual encounter?
Of course. Anything that can protect a man's right to security and, not having his life fucked over, I am in full support of. If you can't compete with a fucking, piece of silicone, then you gotta, rethink your life and what you're doing with it. I'm sorry.
Oh my god. No. That's perfect. That's I support that answer completely. Yeah, if you're a dead lay, there's an issue. And I know Nocta was in the chat earlier. Hey Nocta, what's going on? Nocta was like, hey, pussy stretch with age. Nocta, I actually have to debunk that.
No, Kegels are a
The
thing. Kegels
the
are a
the
thing, and
old
if you
keg.
start early, it can do wonders for
I can
anatomy.
tell you. Yeah, I can tell you this. I had sex with an older woman who she was very religious about her kegels, and I mean like that dedicated. And
Mm,
it was the snapback was there. Let's just put it that way, and it was at least as good as any of the low notch count younger women that I had been with. So kegels are a thing. Like kegels are a legit thing. So just be aware of
mm.
that. Um, all right. Next question, and this is for you,
Hmm.
Stacy. Your English is good. How did you become so good in your country?
I grew up in South Africa during the apartheid. That's just a conversation for a whole other show.
Okay.
So the first language I actually picked up age 4, like fluently, was English. Then we moved back when I was 7 or 8, and I've lived here the rest of my life. But the the what's the word for when something is your first language? The
Your
native
native language.
sounding accent. Yeah, the native sounding accent is still there. If I put enough effort in it, I can cover entirely my accent, but I've been told it's really pleasant to hear, so I don't put too much effort in hiding my accent, my Bulgarian,
Okay.
Slavic accent.
So
So that's
not
why.
to, yeah, not to, it's not that I'm a MILF hunter. I just don't discriminate. That's all. Um, it's just as an FYI. All right. Halaman says, DDJ, what would be the most terrifying thing in family court that you saw, that you would say most influenced you to become MGTOW? I think it was actually my own case. I mean, because I did not want to, and I say it's the thing that influenced me the most, but it wasn't the thing that made that even at that point caused me to make the immediate decision, and that was that when when the state that I lived in knew that the person I was concerned about sexually assaulting my children, they knew who he was, they knew he had a history of it, he was reported for it. And not only did they not do anything about it, but when the family court took my children from my home and placed them in his home where he could rape them for 5 and 6 days a week, the state of Washington did nothing about it. And more importantly, they pretended as though he wasn't a threat, even though they were aware of him 6 months before he ever met my children. Um, families, as long as family courts exist, as long as feminist laws exist, as long as um, domestic violence laws exist, as long as people are able to use domestic violence interventions like the fraudulent Duluth model, the male female social contract in the West and in every country that's adopted feminist policies is dead. Period.
Mm.
I don't give a shit about how many ponage videos you can do on YouTube. I don't give a shit about, how many MRAs come out and speak the truth. The reality is that until the laws change, the social contract between men and women is dead. And the only way it's going to change, and I agree with Jordan Peterson here, the only way that this is going to change is if women change it. Men tried. Men tried. And every time an MRA group comes up, it gets infiltrated by feminists, it gets co-opted with entryism, and then it gets gutted. And so it doesn't work. The MRA movement is dead. And if you guys think for a second, and TFM and I have talked about this for months, the PUA movement is dead. So if you're one of these guys who's a purple pill power bottom, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go out and fuck bitches, and I'm going to go out and just do my thing, and I'm not going to get married, but you MGTOW people, you guys are retarded, or you guys who avoid women, you're retarded. If you're one of those guys, my suggestion is that you take a look at Return of Kings. Return of Kings just came out the other day, and for those people who don't know, Return of Kings was like one of the first and greatest PUA websites out there, started by Roosh V. And I don't agree with Roosh on everything. But there are many things he and I agree on. And they just came out, I think it was in the last 48 hours, and admitted the PUA is dead and that feminism killed it, which is exactly what TFM and I have been saying for months and months and months, at least since September of last year, maybe even before. So this idea that I'm going to go ahead and game the system, or I'm going to go ahead and game these bitches, so to speak, or I'm going to go get laid, but as long as I avoid marriage, that's fine. Listen, that shit's not working. That's why 1 in 4 men are like, we can get a sex doll. That's why you see in the West, you see videos like Coltrane going, what do women bring to the table other than problems? That's why, I mean, the bar of male companionship, ladies, for those of you that are listening, the bar to male companionship is this. 1, don't be a dead lay. Kegels are a thing. And 2, don't bring problems to a man's life. If you do those 2 things, many men will be interested in committing with you. They will be interested in marrying you. They will be interested in having long-term relationships with you. And they will be interested in sacrificing for you. Because if you put their needs before your needs, like Stacy was talking about she does with her husband, that is the key to an 11-year relationship that's actually a relationship, not a marriage on paper only. And I say this as a man who was with a woman for 21 years, married for 17, where the majority of that time, it was a marriage on paper only. So you have to understand that the problem that you have, and it isn't just women, and I think, and this is my view, and I know that different MGTOWs say something different, but this is my view, and that is that feminism harms women as well. Women are incentivized to destroy the relationships with the men in their lives. They're incentivized to replace men. If more women in the West saw their husbands, saw the men whom they've said they've loved as their family, and not as disposable, and they love them with the same commitment that they love their parents or that they love their children, we would see this disposable attitude go away with a quickness, and we would see communities get stronger as a direct result of it.
That's what I've been telling most of my friends, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, you're good.
That's what I've been telling most of my friends, because like after a few years, when they realized, wow, she has actually a really good relationship, they started asking me like, how does that happen with you? And I'm like, who's your family? And they start saying like my kids and my mom and my dad and my sister. And I'm like, no, you have to start with your husband. The moment someone asks you who's your family and you start with my husband, that is the moment you have the relationship you're asking for, because that should be your family first. Like your immediate family should be the man you had children with and those children, and everyone else should be secondary.
Right.
And,
all right. So Pile of Feces asks the next question. He says, question for DDJ. There have been arguments that feminism is really just an extension of female nature, and women claiming indoctrination is a way of deferring responsibility to their own self-interests. But biology must precede culture, and also indoctrination of children is a real thing. Given that, when would women deserve the benefit of the doubt that they're indoctrinated? All right. Well, let me kind of unpack that question a little bit. Feminism is an ideology. Being a woman is a function of biology. They are different. And feminism is and always has been an ideology. Now, if for people who don't know what the term ideology means, or the people who think they know what ideology means, ideology is a set of political ideas. It's a political belief system. And so the danger that you run into here, Pile of Feces, and this goes for everybody else, and this is the problem with framing, is that feminists, the reason they've been so successful in indoctrinating society and in their ideological subversion of society is that they conflate and reframe feminist ideology with female nature, and they are different things. Now, hypergamy is real, and hypergamy is biologically driven for a woman, and on the male side, dominance is the male version of, well, I wouldn't say male version of hypergamy, but it's the male side of that whole dynamic. So it's hypergamy on one side, dominance on the other side. With that in mind, women will always choose, because of hypergamy, they will always choose the best genetic mate and the best mate that they believe, based on their value systems, who will provide for them both emotionally and financially within reason. Because again, when women are pregnant, they do not have the same ability to function in society while they are growing that child inside them. So, with that in mind, you have to understand that hypergamy is necessary for the continuation of society, and you just gotta just fucking accept it. And if you can't,
can I add?
Go ahead.
When you finish, sorry.
All right. So
well,
you just gotta hold on. You just gotta fucking accept it. And it's not a bad thing. And again, if you are looking for a woman, and I'm not saying that you should, I advocate, actually, in the West at least, I advocate avoiding commitment, avoiding cohabitation, and avoiding marriage as long as feminist ideology and as long as feminist laws exist. So when it comes to that, understand, even with my two wives, I give them the benefit of the doubt in regard to the way feminism has indoctrinated both of those women and incentivized them to destroy my family. But I still hold them accountable, and I still strongly disagree with the lack of ethical decisions that they made to destroy that family. Because the reality is that infidelity existed, both male and female, long before feminism was ever a thing. That's just again, that it shit happens. And infidelity should never, ever, ever be lionized. And so when it comes to that, when you're talking about, using feminism as an extension of female nature, you're falling into a trap. This is the argument feminists want you to have. Because if you take that attitude, and again, pile of feces, I'm talking to you, but I'm also talking to the other people that are out there. That is a very, very dangerous thing to allow yourself to do, is to allow feminism and feminists to reframe opposition to feminist bigotry as an opposition to women. The second that you allow yourself to fall in that trap, you're done, and you'll never win an argument, because they will label you as a misogynist, they will label you as a woman hater, and they will ignore everything you have to say. So you have to understand that feminism is an ideology. It is not a gender. And while feminism and hypergamy may have some crossover, they may dovetail, it's the same type of dovetailing that MGTOW and MRAs have. So you have to understand that even though there's kind of a blurred line between the two, they are not the same thing. And hypergamy in and of itself, especially when it is mitigated by male dominance, it's not a bad thing. I mean, look, if she's so ugly that your dick doesn't get hard, don't take erectile dysfunction medication. Just go find somebody else to fuck. It's real simple. Nature's already provided. There are more hot women out there. Go fuck them instead. And the same thing is true for women. If women aren't attracted to the man, they're going to go find somebody else to fuck instead. That's what hypergamy compels them to do. I mean, in a most basic level, of course. I'm being overly general here. That's not a bad thing. I mean, do we want to have, the worst genetics out there? Or do we want to be like the old school English people where they used to marry their brothers and sisters and be completely fucking inbred? No, absolutely not. So I'm done ranting. Stacy, I know you want to say something. I appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna just very slightly disagree with you on that. I know why you don't want the conflation between female nature and feminism. I understand that, and you made that perfectly clear. But I really do believe that what feminism has become and what feminism appeals to is the selfish and, most destructive part of female nature.
Oh,
and
I agree with
really
that. Yeah.
easy. It's really easy to give into as a woman because it appeals to your selfishness. It appeals to you getting what you want, right? And if you're immature and if you haven't been slapped around by life long enough, you might actually believe the promises, It gives you, like, if you stand with us, we'll make it so you can have everything. And unfortunately, the life doesn't work like that. No one gets everything. You have to pick and choose because you only have so many hands to hold things with, right? You're not the sun. You can't shine everywhere. So,
Well, that's what your mouth
yeah,
is for.
it is. It, see, now you distracted me. It is uh, a very interesting entry point into looking into female nature, and many MGTOWs have done that.
Well,
Made
and let me
parallel.
and let me clarify that for a second. Feminism is allowed for unrestrained hypergamy, but it is criminalized male dominance. In a non-feminist society, male dominance mitigates hypergamy, and hypergamy mitigates male dominance. I mean, there was a balance there, and I agree with you. I think that unrestrained female hypergamy is definitely a bad thing, especially when it's lionized or when you make laws that codify, being irresponsible into law.
There's the other part of that. I don't think, and this is me being me, I don't think it's a male or female problem.
Okay.
I think it's incentivizing a group of people to make poor decisions. And if the things were switched around, if men were financially rewarded for fucking up their lives, they would do the same. Because that appeals to not only male or female nature, it appeals to human nature. We try to live our lives, most of us, like the vast majority of humans, go through the path of least resistance.
Okay,
They
hold on,
want their lives to be
hold on.
relatively easy.
Give me just a
Yeah.
quick second. Oslo, she actually answered that question a couple streams ago. She's 400 pounds. Okay, go ahead, Stacy. Sorry about that.
You're not talking about me, right?
No. I know you only weigh 350. It's fine.
um, so yeah, that's what I was going to say, that because it appeals to the self-destructiveness specifically of women and infiltrates the system in a way that is incentivized. If there was a mirror thing for men would be doing the exact same thing. It's about rewarding bad behavior in humans, and it's not gendered, unfortunately. I have to, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. We can disagree there.
What I think.
Okay. Hallaman1345 says, DDJ, why did they put your child in such a horrifying situation? How did they benefit from it? Or what was their goal in doing such a horrifying thing to you? Well, first and foremost, Hallaman, it was children. It was 2 kids, not 1. The reason they did that is because they wanted welfare money. You have to understand that the court cases that don't have drama, the attorneys don't get paid. And more importantly, if you could go to the federal government and say, look, my county court system has got this overload of cases. We need government welfare to make a bigger courthouse, or we need government welfare to make a bigger child protective services agency, or we need government welfare for all these different things. When you have a welfare state mindset, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create job security. So the biggest, and they've done studies about this, the biggest indicator of whether or not a child will grow up to be a criminal is whether or not they were victimized as a child. So if you create situations where it's not if the child will be victimized, it's when the child will be victimized, you create the perfect situation, the perfect storm, where these children are automatically going to get victimized at some point. Now these children will grow up and be job creators. And what I mean by that is that you'll need more cops on the street to arrest them. You're going to need more judges to convict them. You're going to need more prosecutors to prosecute them. You're going to need more jailers to jail them. And you're going to need more social workers to deal with their kids and their families in this multi-generational problem that you're creating. So this is how the welfare state not only creates an oppressive state, but they create the problem that they're claiming to want to solve by creating criminals. So when you destroy the family, when you put these children in situations where you know they're going to be victimized, what you're doing is you're growing the welfare state, and you're doing it exponentially. And once these children's lives are destroyed, there's no recovery. So why did they do it to me? Because I'm a man. Feminism was never about equality. Feminism was about hatred of men. It was about hating everything that's masculine. It was about hating everything that was good and right about men and honorable about men, and destroying men's lives. And if you don't believe me, go to womenshealth.gov. Go to menshealth.gov. Menshealth.gov doesn't exist. Womenshealth.gov does. If you go look at colleges, 2/3 of all college enrollees in the United States are women, not men. There is not a single scholarship, except for what Milo has put out there, that is a scholarship that is gender-based for men. There are at least 5,000 scholarships for women just for having a vagina. Not for merit, not for skill, not for excellence in community service, not for high level of achievement, for having a vagina. So when you have a misandrous system like that, you have to demonize men, and you especially have to demonize men who speak out against feminist bigotry. Because the second that people wake up and they start realizing how bad and how cancerous and how destructive feminism has been, not only for families and not only for men, but they've destroyed societies, and they've created these high crime ghettos that are continuing to kill people, or the fact that 26 out of 27 mass shooters in the United States were raised by single moms, created by feminism. Well, that's a reality that nobody wants to accept. That's a reality that nobody can handle. So they have to demonize men. They have to destroy men to do it. And, for those men out there, if you've had your children taken from you, if you're in a situation where you haven't seen your kids because, you've been crucified and discriminated against by family courts, you should have hope, because the reality is that everything they could do to you, they've done. So now you can rebuild your life, and now you can educate other people as well. Hopefully, maybe even being more influential than I've been. So, and I don't know that I'm a success or not, but I mean, clearly my message is resonating with somebody. So, but I think that the more we talk about these things, and the more that we bring attention to the feminist bigotry that's destroying families and destroying communities, the quicker we can cure the cancer. All right. Next question. This one is for you, Stacy. How do you feel about losing your voting rights and privileges for the improvement of society? We actually answered this question in Capacia. I'm not going to ask it again. Next question. How strong is feminism in China and Russia? Well, China doesn't give a fuck. China doesn't give a fuck. China actually, they labeled feminism as an extremist organization, and they arrested a bunch of them just a few months ago.
They're also a communist state, though.
Yeah, they are.
So they don't need feminism. They have like the they're a couple of levels above caring about feminism.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck. And Russia's the same way. I mean, I watch videos of Russian police officers arresting femin protesters. Femin is they're a group of women who are financed. It's kind of funny. Feminism, or Femin, FEMEN, is a feminist organization that started in the Eastern Bloc. It's financed by men, but it's basically a bunch of women who show their tits and protest religion.
Oh, Femin! Those are they're not Russians. They're, what's the other country?
The Ukrainian?
Yeah, they were Ukrainian.
Yeah, they started out as Ukrainian. Well, they came into Russia. They've been exporting Femin all over the world. And they came to Russia.
For the time they protested in Sofia was hilarious. It was against violence, and they were just running up to men and saying, hit me, and they would grab them by the tits and laugh. The protest was a shit show. It was hilarious, and policemen were just sitting there holding their bellies, it was hilarious. The reports were so funny. Like Bulgarian men don't give a fuck. They're like, "Oh, you want me to grab your titties? Fine. Let me massage them for you. Are you cold, honey?
Right.
I got
Well, they
you bed at
consented.
home."
They consented. I mean, they say right in front of the cops. Hit me, baby, touch my breasts. Okay. I mean, they consented. In Russia, they were doing this protest, and one of the women tried to get a little bit physical with the cops, and the cops
Uh-huh.
didn't give a fuck. They just beat him down. They were just like, "Oh, resisting arrest. Yeah, we don't fuck with that shit in Russia." And I mean, they got their asses whooped. They got a little taste of equality. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Looking at the other questions here. All right. Oslo MGTOW asks, what does Stacy think of celebrity trad thoughts on YouTube who preach about family and traditions but don't want to get married themselves?
Oh, I did a video about that. Well, it's not about that. It's the video about marriage and everyone needs to see. And it's my thoughts are if you're gonna be citing Christian studies about virginity and talking about marketplace value of women and men and whatever, and talking about white babies and this and that, and not doing it yourself, like if you're not making these videos pregnant from your kitchen, you can just fuck off.
Right.
Because I don't appreciate people who tell other people how to live their life. You can give suggestions, you can give pointers, you can say why your way of living and practice what you preach. You know, you can't be, oh, I'm going to be this beautiful, blonde, thin reporter woman that travels the world and fucks all the guys she wants while, advocating virginity. But you definitely need to go and get yourself a baby daddy. Don't do
Right.
that. You look hilarious. You look like a fucking hypocrite.
Right. And just so
I
we're
have,
on the same page, so that we're absolutely clear, we're not talking
yeah.
about any one specific trad thought that's out there. There's more than one blonde trad thought in the world. So just,
Oh, I'm
FYI.
talking about Lauren Southern.
Oh, okay. 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 All right. The shots
I'm
fired.
thinking about her.
Okay.
And
Fair
I,
enough.
I loved her. Well, I don't want to have, because I haven't met the man. Well, sit on your fucking ass and look for one. He's not gonna fall out of the sky.
Right. Right. All right. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Halaman 1345 asks, how bad is feminism in South Africa?
um, Feminism isn't in South Africa. South Africa is a legit rape culture where if you're female over the age of 5 and you're walking down the street in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong hour of the day, you'll get raped. And then people will say, "Oh, look at that whore that fucked 10 guys on the same day." That's South Africa for you, at least the rural parts.
Right. Well, I think with that in mind, I mean, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. I'm going to go ahead
Oh
and end it
wow.
now. I apologize for everybody who didn't get their questions asked. It's still a little bit early for me. It's coming up on 7 a.m. And I definitely need another cup of coffee. But Stacy, I appreciate you taking the time out for me today and, taking the time to live stream and chat with me. So yeah, it's an hour and 42 minutes now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It was fun. We should do it again sometime.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was fun, and we could touch on some different subjects at that point. So, for
Mm-hmm.
everybody, if I didn't get to your question, I apologize. But thank you for tuning in. I'll be doing some post production on this, and I'll be uploading it to YouTube. Also, for those people that want to support me, obviously check out my Bitchute channel. In
Patreon.
case, yeah, well, there you go, Patreon #show alert Patreon. Um, Check out my BitChute channel. If YouTube targets me, all my videos are backed up on BitChute. My YouTube channel is down there. Please check that out as well. I'm also on Minds. And if you go to my webpage at misandrytoday.com, you can actually find a link there to my sponsor, The Dollhouse. Check them out. Definitely give them the time of day. And if there's something that you have seen on a competitor's website, if you're in the market, and you don't see it on the Dollhouse, reach out to him and let him know. Send him an email, contact him directly, and say, "Look, such and such website has this. I would like this, but you don't sell it, and I'd like to purchase it from you." He can get you custom orders, so he can. I mean, pretty much he can get almost anything on the market. So just be aware of that. He's very flexible and he's really willing to work with you. And then, of course, obviously, hashtag Shill Alert, The Feminist Lie. Check it out. It's a book I wrote
Really
back
good
in,
book.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, maybe the next time we can talk about your get your
We can
feedback on
actually
my book
talk.
as well.
Yeah, we can actually talk about the book next time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we got caught up in other things, so it's okay.
Yeah. Well, we talked about stuff that's in the book, so that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Oh, by
again,
the way,
for
if
go
anyone
ahead.
needs to wants to ask me a question and didn't manage to get it in now, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Stacy King BG for Bulgaria. So if you really, really, really need to ask me a question, I'm there. Tweet at me. I'll answer. It's
And
fine.
you got a YouTube channel as well. It's Stacy King, right, on YouTube.
Yep. Stacy King on YouTube. Same avatar. Same thing. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I have a
And
Patreon too.
there you go. There you go. You want to throw her some shekels.
Ah,
So
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and I'll put a link to Stacy's YouTube channel when I do the description of the video. So thank you everybody for having this little early morning red eye show with us, and I hope everybody has a great day. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.